Turn it up, now we're back on air. Big games, big takes, yeah, we're going there. From the first hot mic to the final call. Nah, dog, sports show, talking ball. Headlines hitting, yeah, the day moves fast. We call the big shots, then we double back. From the fight nights, fairways, brackets too. Football Sundays, we're riding through. Win or lose, we still bring the heat. Talk it loud, keep it sharp, no retreat.
It's the Nard Dog Sports Show, where the ball takes roll. Game time, prime time, let the whole thing go. Yeah, the Nard Dog Sports Show, coming fast, talking goal. From the kickoff line to the final show.
It's the Narc Dog Sports Show. It is Wednesday, April Fool's Day. I'm here with Ryan Siggins, my little brother out of Columbus, Ohio. I'm here with Max Marshall out of Raleigh, North Carolina, fresh off a bachelor party, feeling fresh as a daisy. And this is the Nard Dog, Casey Siggins. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, been better. You know, hanging in there, hanging on by a thread, but that's what these bachelor parties do when you're 37. So,
Yeah, it's... Well, I'm glad you had a good time, though. We caught up a little bit before we started recording tonight, so Marsh is, like I said, he's going to be firing on all cylinders. He's going to have his hottest takes since the inception of the podcast tonight. And he watched every second of hoops last weekend. He watched every second of golf. He's ready to go, as we all are. But yeah, man, I think the place to start tonight is with the college basketball. We had a Sweet 16, we had an Elite Eight, we had a weekend capper that was for the ages in that Duke UConn buzzer beater to move UConn into the Final Four and send Duke home. That East region really kind of lived up to the hype that we spoke about last weekend, Ryan. What did you make of all the basketball from last weekend? And I'll kind of guide us through, but just general thoughts off the top.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. You know, couldn't have ended any better with that UConn buzzer beater against Duke. We got great matchups coming up, and I'm excited for. Really excited for the Michigan Arizona game, but I also think that UConn Illinois game is going to be great. So I don't think there's a bad matchup for the final. So excited.
Marsh, I know you guys had limited screen time and were out and about and doing stuff, but did you have some time this week to kind of watch some highlights, get caught up on what happened and what went down in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight?
yeah, I watched the second half of the Duke UConn game, and I mean that was just outstanding. I think what we need to talk about more from that game is just the opposite ends of the spectrum at the head coach level. You have absolute psychopath. I'm pretty sure he's an axe murderer, Dan Hurley, and the biggest walking pussy in a jumpsuit in John Shire. And the fact that Dan Hurley absolutely went bananas and put him and just stuffed him into a locker. I mean, headbutting refs. Evidently said it was a chest bump move, which anyone who watched that knew that was never a thing. There was no chest bump that was even close there. You're just a psychopath and you wanted to split somebody's freaking forehead open. I just love what Dan Hurley's doing. He is absolute cinema. I think realistically, maybe we should just clone the guy and put him like on the front lines, like 400 Dan Hurleys in the infantry unit, and just send him overseas. I think we would just absolutely wipe the face of the planet with that guy.
Yeah, Hurley is he's something else, man. He has his boys ready to go when it comes to these tournament games, and especially in these, the second game of the weekend. It's very impressive the way that he has been able to kind of push UConn. In the first couple national championships, a couple years ago, he really, they were dominant in a lot of the games that they played, and they really had a lot more talent and just firepower to overmatch teams. And this run to the Final Four, I picked Michigan State to beat them. I picked Duke to beat them. I thought UCLA could beat them, but there's something about his style and his approach that just has the Huskies ready to show up and ball. And he made a point over the course of the last few days to highlight, the biggest thing about this team is the fight in them and their inability to just lay down and roll over and quit. And you saw that Sunday. It was unbelievable. Ryan, I know, let's just start with the East region, going back to Friday night. Duke, St. John's. St. John's had Duke on the ropes. St. John's had Duke down 10 in the second half, and I thought they were going to be able to put them away. And then, Duke had this ability to kind of put the clamps on teams and kind of shut. And St. John's just didn't really have the shooters, didn't have the guard play. But starting with that one, and then moving into the UConn Michigan State game, which UConn almost blew that, and they were almost not in the Elite Eight, right? They built up a big 20-point lead in the first half, and then ended up winning by 2, with Michigan State having a shot to steal that one at the end. What were your thoughts? And like I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you? What would the score be for you in terms of how much that regional lived up to the anticipation leading into the games last week?
I mean, that's a 10 for the region overall. You can't ask for a better draw for the Sweet 16. You can't ask for the better coaches. You can't ask for a game than that Duke UConn. And even like you said, the St. John's game was against Duke was a comeback win. Michigan State UConn was almost a comeback. So we were very close to having St. John's Michigan State, playing for the chance for the Final Four. So, and one thing I want to point out about that UConn game is they did not even play well. So that's just speaks to how tough they are and how well they play in early system. I mean, I think at one point they were 1 for 16 from 3. Is that right?
1 for 18.
They
so
were
I literally just saw this 1 for 18 with 6.5 to go in the game.
I mean, to have that and to beat this Duke team is crazy, because this Duke team, that St. John's Duke game, those guys were playing D on both sides of the ball. And it was kind of shocking to me that the D that kind of seemed to trip St. John's up was when the Duke switched to zone. They had a 5-minute period where they couldn't do anything, and Duke went back to man, when it mattered. But that stretch where where Duke went to zone, actually, I thought was the difference in the game. Great region overall. UNC and Duke both blowing 19-point leads in this tournament is insane. One thing I want to point out is as growing up a UNC fan, when they blew that lead, I was disappointed, but I didn't really feel that much. But watching Duke blow that lead, I still felt the hate still lives more than my fandom. Even though I don't this is not a very hateable Duke team, just watching them blow it and watching that comeback was just awesome. And I think it is one of the few things the whole country can get behind is hating Duke.
Something about seeing nerds collapse that's just euphoric.
It really is.
Just buckle at the knees.
And I know this is some friendly needling at me. And look, I have to be honest. Friday night, when I was watching St. John's Duke, and then St. John's built up a 10-point lead, and Pitino had they were showing Pitino on the sidelines. I was kind of rooting for St. John's to take Duke out and beat them. When UConn started making a run on Sunday and started looking like they might pull this miracle comeback, I wouldn't say I was rooting for UConn, because I don't like Hurley and UConn like I liked St. John's and Rick Pitino. But when Caden Boozer turned that ball over on Sunday and UConn got it, and it went from Mullins to Caravan back to Mullins, there was a part of me that I kind of gasped with my old Duke, kind of nostalgic feelings coming back for a hot second. And then I was like, I want to see this shot go in for the moment, right? So I can't sit here and authentically tell you guys that like I was heartbroken. I was super upset about that Duke loss. I think at this point I don't hate Duke at all. I don't hate Shire. I like the Duke logo and the Duke, Duke brand and what they represent in college basketball. And I like when Duke is in the mix, but I can't authentically sit here and say that I'm a big Duke fan when I kind of was pulling for St. John's. And then the moment that ball left Mullen's hands, I was like, oh man, I kind of hope this goes in. Right. So it was kind of my first realization that Duke is no longer a team that I would really consider my team. And I'm not just saying that to deflect pain. It'd be probably a better show if I was super butthurt about it. I just wasn't. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Brian, I hear you with, it sounds like you had kind of similar feelings with when North Carolina was blowing their lead down the stretch.
Yeah, I did. I just don't follow that closely, so I really wouldn't consider myself like a big fan either. I grew up a fan. I still root for them, but I didn't really feel anything when they lost, and I felt more when Duke lost.
Yeah.
So I think that shows that hate lives in my heart more than fandom does.
Yeah. And I get it. I get why people like to see Duke struggle and Duke collapse. And it's 2 years in a row now. And Shire is going to have a monkey on his back for quite a while until he wins a national championship, probably. Right? He blew a 14-point lead against Houston last year. He blew a 9-point lead against NC State the year before that. And then he blows this 19-point lead against UConn. Shire, I think he's an excellent coach. I think that there's something really material now to this narrative that he struggles to close these games in a tournament setting.
He's an X's and O's guy, but he ain't a dog. Okay. I mean, Dan Hurley just rolled him up, crumpled him like a piece of paper, and punted him into the 15th fucking row. Okay. That was incredible. I'm watching the mannerisms on the sideline, right? And John, in his Duke sweatsuit, which wear a suit, you fag. But walking up and down the sideline, just kind of doing this number. All right, boys. All right. And then you got psychopath Danny Boy, who's just fucking. At one point, I almost spit out my drink. He's looking at the ref and kind of doing this number after a foul. And then just, are you fucking kidding? Like explodes out of nowhere. And I was like, my God, I was like, this guy is a fucking sociopath. This is nuts. And I swear that is what galvanizes that team, like we talked about. Like they not only know the X's and O's, but they don't back down. They are absolute dogs. No matter what is going on, they're going to give the fight. They're the unhinged pit bulls out there. And I mean, it's because of Dan Hurley. The guy is, I mean, he's fun to watch. I was hoping that we'd get like an authentic 90s Mortal Kombat meme of sorts of Dan Hurley doing like a headbutt finishing move to John Shire and just breaking him into a million pieces. I still haven't seen that one yet, but that would be absolutely the freaking cherry on top for that game.
One thing I want to say, and this is, a pointless rule change that I would like to see. We don't need to stop the clock right at 0.3 seconds when the ball goes through the net. I hate that. I think the game should be over. Like, that was a buzzer beater. And then, they stop, they put the 0.3, they review it. I just hate that. It's like, if you don't call the timeout with like a second, with substantial time on the clock, I think that the clock should just keep running. But buzzer beater. And this is a point that doesn't really need to be discussed any further. But
I'll talk about it all night, Ron.
I don't disagree, but yeah, it's I don't know that I know exactly how it works and what the change could or would be. But yeah, no, one thing I wanted to bring up and just kind of get your guys' thoughts on is, look, Duke has been very talented the last 2 years. They've been a number one seed and at some point in the tournament, some point heading into March, the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. And they've been very freshman, young, kind of core teams. and they run into a senior laden UConn team. Last year, they run into an older, more mature Houston Cougar team. Is there something to be said about these older teams getting into kind of a high pressure situation in the Elite Eight, in the Final Four, and just being able to kind of mentally, psychologically bully the young kids from Duke who are very talented, but have not been in these kind of big postseason moments like some of these older teams have been? I'll go to Max first.
Yeah, I mean, my take on that is, I think if you have a Dan Hurley, a Rick Pitino, a Tom Izzo, somebody who's extremely experienced coach and can teach them that, it's one thing, right? But when you have Charmin Soft Shire, who knows all about basketball, like he could be a basketball genius, he could be great at basketball, but I just don't think he's got the experience, the I don't want to call it drive. I'm sure he's super motivated, right? But like he just doesn't have that dog in him that says like, "Hey, if you don't do it right, this is how it's going to happen in the tournament and we're going to lose." I think they're just going through kind of running plays, doing drills, things like that. I don't think there's that extra for the team that kind of hardens that freshman shell and gets them to kind of shut off the noise in the moment. That's kind of my piece on it is, and I just don't think, I think Shire just kind of leaned on them to just, hey, go play ball, do your thing a little bit more, and
Brian, what do you
the
think?
experience shows.
I don't want to be too hard on them. They have blown these leads, but they've been there. He's been accumulating these great talented teams at least. So my thought is like he'll break through if he keeps getting these teams. You never know what the team's going to be that actually does get to the championship. Winning 6 in a row in a tournament setting is not easy with any team. It's a problem for now until it's not, which is like you see that in college football a lot, where this guy can't win the big one until he does. And the older teams are going to be a problem whenever you have the young teams. They just are not going to have the experience, and experience does matter so much in these games where they get tight late and just a few possessions here or there matters so much, where you make a bad turnover, make a bad play, it really costs you, where the leadership and of an older guy, you're just so much less likely to have, that the stupid play.
Right, because the last two games, or the last game of the last 2 years for Duke, I didn't feel like Duke was young and scrawny and physically outmatched against Houston or against UConn. I think they held their own very well against both those teams physically, on the boards and the paint. But it was the mental errors down the stretch that, that's what really hurt them in both of those games. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the same approach is taken by Duke in terms of roster construction moving forward. I think at a certain point, you got to have, maybe more of a mix of one or two stud freshmen that are ultra talented, but then an older roster built around them, right? Through the transfer portal and through, just getting guys that you can develop, maybe more 4 stars and less 5 stars that are going to stick around and kind of be the Greg Paulus and the dorkier white guys, that Duke had in the past that they don't seem to really get anyway. It's mostly one and done type freshmen.
Yeah,
Well,
they've replaced Kyle Singler with the Jason Tatums, which
yes,
is overall it's way more talent, but you have 1 year to capitalize, and that's hard.
it's the thing. That's the lucrative aspect of NIL, though. Is Duke has so much money to throw at these basketball guys that you just get caught up in all the gold that you can strike and all the elite 5-star plus guys that you can get that are going to be top 10 picks in the NBA draft, and you're not thinking to yourself, what happens when they leave after the first year? Like, we actually need to build depth. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of changed the game from that perspective, but you have to be diligent about, we actually need some gel guys that maybe are more in that 4-star bucket, or maybe aren't the uber athletic 6'10", spread the court kind of guys. Like,
Well,
just a
look at the roster makeup of 3 of the 4 Final Four teams, right? You got Arizona, who has some real veterans on their team, but then, Braden
Mhm.
Berries and Koa Pete are the stud freshmen, the high ceiling freshmen, right? You got UConn, Caravan and Terrace Reed are really kind of the leaders and the driving force of that team, but you got Braylon
Yep.
Mullins hitting that shot on Sunday. And then you got Illinois, who, bunch of older white guys from the Eastern European bloc, but then you got Vogler, who, was kind of the
Yeah.
stud freshman for them. So
And Merkovich.
yeah, right. So it's an interesting dynamic and now one that Duke really needs to consider moving forward in how they put their roster together if they want to be back, on that national championship stage at some point in the next few years.
It's kind of interesting looking at Michigan's roster, right? They don't have a single freshman. And, like seeing how that plays out is going to be interesting. We may be coming back to revisit this conversation and say, on paper, that makes total sense based on what we were talking about.
And I'd be interested to see like what an Isaiah Evans does at Duke. He's a sophomore. I mean, he played unbelievable in that St. John's game. I really like his
Him and
game.
Foster.
Yeah, I don't know. He could be higher than I think. I don't think he's like a lottery guy. So at a school like Duke, you would think you could probably bring him back to make just as much money, even if he is a late first round draft pick guy. So
If he's smart, he'll transfer and go play for somebody with a spine. But yeah, I would.
Well, let's move on. We spent about a half hour, which I think we'll move through these next few regionals much more quickly. But moving down to the South region, right below the East on the left side of the bracket, Illinois comes out. And when Ryan and I did our preview show, the Sweet 16 last week, I think we both were not dismissive of Illinois' chances to beat Houston, but both, I think, had a pretty strong confidence level in Houston moving on to face the winner of that Nebraska-Iowa game, and that's clearly not what happened, right? Illinois jumps out and just jumps all over. I mean, I had been touting Houston's ability to not only play defense, but also shoot the ball and put the ball in the hoop for the last few weeks. That completely disappeared against Illinois. And Illinois moves on with relative ease for a Sweet 16 game against Houston in Houston. And they play Iowa, who, the 9 seed, this year's version of Cinderella, if you will, is sitting there in the Elite Eight. And Illinois kind of gets by them with relative ease. They're the number 1 offense in the country, according to Ken Palm. And over the last 3 games in their region against VCU, 55 points, under 1 point per possession. Houston, 55 points, under 1 point per possession. Iowa, 59 points, 1.08 points per possession. I mean, they're just clamping teams down and scoring with great efficiency now. Ryan, thoughts on that South Regional?
much less thoughts on this region in general. I was completely wrong. I thought Houston could be a bad matchup. Obviously, that was not the case. They look good. I think the story out of this is less about the games for me. It's more about will people try to copy what Illinois is doing and bring in the older Eastern European who used to not really consider staying for that, or that bring over the guy that they used to not be able to get because they would go pro at a younger age over there. But now that you can bring them over with the NIL, I think that is going to be the new hot trend where teams try to, go all in on the older. We can't recruit the 5 stars out of high school, so we're going to go this way. And it's just it's a new way of going after the transfer portal, but the international market is a big market, and I do think that's going to be a hot thing that teams start doing.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing, Ryan. I love Brad Underwood. I think from a coaching perspective, that guy he's done one of the better jobs creating culture with his team, which is hard to do when you're shipping people over from Europe. And, they're learning a totally different way of life essentially. Now, they're not naive, right? They know how Americans live and obviously watch our basketball probably pretty religiously, but at the same time, reaching out, using this NIL money to say, hey, let's go look at Spanish league or Italian league or Greece or wherever, and it's like you got these kids who are anywhere from 22 to 24 even, and you're like, hey, I can get a couple years of eligibility out of this kid, but he's got 4 years of experience playing in a European pro league. That's a benefit to us, right? They've got that experience that we talked about earlier to some extent. And then the fact that not only is Illinois the most offensively efficient team, but they're the biggest team left in the tournament too, and they got a ton of size. And I think, when you look at even Keaton Vogler, but when you look at him, 6'5" guard, I mean, the guy plays like he's like 6'8" in some instances, it feels like, and just is physical and dominant, even from a guard position, which I think when you look at it as a whole, like Brad Underwood going out, finding that niche, bringing it back, creating the culture he has. They're shooting each other with water guns, super soakers in the locker room. They won a freaking guitar in a Music City Classic game or something, and they let the player of the game smash the son of a bitch in the locker room into pieces. And everyone's just losing their minds, and they loved it. It's like, okay, this guy's awesome. Like, we're having a freaking blast doing it too. So I think he's on to something. I think, to your point, Ryan, bring these guys over, let them ball out, and maybe it's just a Luka Doncic pipeline.
Yeah. No, look, I don't think there's a whole lot to discuss with the South Regional. Illinois was clearly the best team and is moving on and is going to face UConn now. I think the one other thing that I wanted to hit on, and just a question for Ryan, as someone who did spend a season playing college basketball and didn't get to the Sweet 16 and at a high pressure moment like that, but looking back at Thursday night, and you're Fred Hoiberg, you're Nebraska, you're in this moment that you've never been in as a program. You're down 3 with a minute to go. How the fuck do you put out 4 players on the court and give up an and one layup to essentially clinch the game? How do you only, as a college basketball team, put out 4 guys on the floor?
It's so crazy, so insane. I do like how he at least jumped on it and said it was his fault. I don't think it was. I think there was 5 players supposed to be in the game. If someone doesn't come check into the game for you, why are you not going back into the game? So I don't think it was his fault, honestly. Like, you're a college basketball player. Well, I don't know whose fault it was, but like if someone doesn't check in for you, you're in the game. So I don't understand how it happened. I know it was coming off a timeout. There's still, you have to check in and check out. They're very strict on that. So how that happened is so insane. But I do like how he said, I'm the coach. It's my fault. So they blew that game bad though. I thought they had that.
That's embarrassing in like 8th grade basketball, freshman basketball. Like, you have guys who are well old enough to know they should still be in the game. They haven't been subbed out yet. To do it in men's college basketball in the Sweet 16 against a rival in a big moment, 1 minute to go. But that was the most clutch moment, and you roll out 4 guys. It's comical.
Yeah. Like, you fell on the grenade, but everyone should let that grenade blow you to pieces, really, because that's just it's miserable. I don't understand.
Oh, they deserve to go home, and they did. Moving on to the West Regional, the Arizona Wildcats come out of the West, as many thought that they would. They get past Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks with, relative ease on what was that, Thursday night. Arkansas just didn't have. That was the concern, right? Is that does Arkansas have the defensive profile to be able to get stops against this Arizona team? I think they gave up 90 points in the paint, if I remember correctly. So there was an emphatic no delivered from the Arizona Wildcats to Arkansas that no, they don't have the defense to move on to be an Elite 8 or a Final Four team. Ryan, I know that was one that you and I both were keeping our eye on as one that we were very excited to watch, but it was just not even really remotely close past the first 8 to 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes of the game, they had about 5 wide open threes. This is Arkansas, and they just missed them, and you knew right then they needed to shoot well and play good D for them to have a chance, and they didn't do any of that. And Arizona looked unstoppable that day. I think they only shot like 7 threes that night. They were like 5 for 7. And I mean, they just made every shot. They were like 70% from the field that night. They looked unbeatable.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it, Nard, 90 points in the paint or something like that. I mean, I've watched Arizona more than any other team this year, and that's all they did. They just dominated the paint. Everyone they played. Didn't matter.
That
They would
game
just
was that game was the best any team has looked to me throughout the entire tournament.
You're looking at top players left in the tournament, right? It's Arizona's got like 3 of the top 6, maybe, with Barry's, Koa Pete, Jaden Bradley. I mean, they got to be up there. And the way they dominate the paint, it's old school basketball. Get it in, get fouled, post up, and then how they attack the paint too, right? It's not just posting up, but it's fun to watch. Everything's gone to such a shooting league, and finding the open three, it feels like so much, which is fun. But I've said it from the jump. Like, I picked Arizona in everything we did because I think they're the most complete team, and I still think they get it done this year.
I think they will too. And I don't think that there's a fan base left that deserves it more than they do. This is a program and a fan base that has been kicked in the nuts repeatedly over the last 25 years since their last national championship appearance with under Lute Olson, with Jason Gardner and Luke Walton. But this is a team and a program that just heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss. We've touched on the '05 collapse against Illinois. In 2003, they got beaten in the Elite Eight as the 1 seed against the Kirk Heinrich, Nick Collison, Kansas Jayhawks. 2011, that Derek Williams team, they get beaten in the Elite Eight by the Kemba Walker Yukon Huskies. 2014, 2015, they lose in the Elite Eight back-to-back years to those Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker teams. 2017, they go to the Sweet 16 as a 2 seed, and they get beat by Xavier, Sean Miller's old team, right? 2018 or 2019, I can't remember what it is. They're a 4 seed, Pac-12 regular season and tournament champs. Get beat by 20 in the first round by the Buffalo Bulls, Dan Hurley. Bobby Hurley's Buffalo Bulls. And then, they lose a couple years ago to Princeton. They get beat, I think, was it last year or the year before, in the Sweet 16 as a 2 seed by Clemson, and Clemson goes to the Final Four, right? So this is a team that has a 25-year history of not delivering, not living up to expectations, and breaking their fans' heart. I think this is the team that's going to finally deliver Arizona, one of the best programs in the country over the last 25 years. I think this is a team that's finally going to deliver them another national championship. First one in 30 years since Lute Olson got it done in 97. But we'll see. They have a hell of a matchup against Michigan. And that Michigan team, when they get the ball moving and they're rolling and firing on all cylinders, they are not a fun team to play. Let's segue that into that Midwest regional. Michigan dominated. Iowa State did not show up Friday night. They got smoked by Tennessee. Michigan had an interesting game with Alabama for a half. Alabama was up 2 at half, and then Michigan just kind of comfortably started getting stops. Alabama wasn't shooting the ball well, and Michigan couldn't be stopped inside. Max, let's go to you first on this region.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that and talking about Michigan is just saying Yaxel every single time he touches the ball. It's amazing. I mean, that guy's a freaking cyborg at the end of the day. I think he's averaging, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 61% from the field, 52% from 3. Not to mention he's probably the best defensive player in the tournament. So, I mean, the guy is he's the freaking Black Terminator in a Michigan uniform. And it's fun to watch. And the fact that
he's also
he was
34 years old.
You look at Michigan's coach, seeing him, probably looking at film, scouting, saying, this kid's athletic. We can put him at a forward, and he could stretch the floor and become just a whole new animal and menace out there. And boy, did that work out. He's awesome to watch. But to your point, Nard, they're a complete team. They've got it all. They're fun to watch, and they've got the record and schedule record, essentially, results to prove it. I think at the end of the day, when you look at this as a whole, I really think the East was the only gauntlet. Like, I kind of think these other three regions, Illinois had to get past Houston, and that was really it. Yeah, I think Michigan, Arizona, we've talked about it. That's going to be the matchup. Whoever wins that game is going to win it all. Having said that, though, I think I'd actually put my money on UConn just because, historically speaking, you're an idiot if you don't.
So you have both the winner of the
3 out of
Arizona
4.
Michigan game
3 out of
and
4.
Yeah.
So it's who's going to win then.
Yeah. And Illinois is probably going to win after saying all that. So,
And just to be safe, I'm going to throw a ticket in on Illinois too.
yeah, why not? There's got to be value somewhere.
Ryan, anything on the Midwest regional that we didn't touch on? It was any kind of closing thoughts before we just move into the Final Four games and kind of make our picks?
Not a ton. Michigan is one of those teams where you have to play great just to stay close. If you're just playing good, they'll blow you out by 15 points. And they've shown that time and time again this year. And one thing you said, that no fan base deserves a national title more than Arizona, I disagree. Louisville was doing a lot of funky stuff the year they beat Michigan in the national championship. And Michigan men do not like any funny business at all. That title has been stripped from Louisville, but they do not claim that because they're Michigan men. You have to win it on the court, of course. But that is the fan base that deserves a title. And I think, like Max, I'm betting on all 4 teams, but I think the winner of that Arizona-Michigan game will win it. And I think that is a big-time matchup. That is 2 huge teams. I was surprised earlier when Max said that the Illini were the biggest team left because those 2 teams are so big. They play so big. They dominate people inside, and it's fun to watch. And I do agree, it's almost refreshing after it seems like 10 years of just 3 every possession. It's fun to watch, some inside bangers. And I was really enjoying watching Reed play so good that first half against Duke. It's fun to watch, big guys bang. Someone said that he looked like Patrick Ewing, and I agree. He was banging that first half.
It's a good comp.
I love it seems like that's somewhat what some of these big older teams are going to. Not so much the 3, it's more just dominate inside.
No, all 4 of these teams have real legit size and muscle inside. And I think I don't really give any one of the 4 a super big competitive advantage in terms of being able to dominate inside in the paint, which is kind of crazy in how good all 4 of these teams have been inside, right? And playing bully ball. So I think we're going to see muscle on muscle. We're going to see guys posting each other up. We're going to see real legit kind of old school basketball. And none of these teams are super high volume 3-point shooting teams. They all, have guys that are capable of shooting and will shoot, but none of them are just going to bomb away like Alabama a couple years ago. So, I think this is going to be an incredibly entertaining, who can outmuscle who inside type of Final Four. That's probably a good way to set up my question. The first of a couple questions I have on this Final Four, but Marsh, you can't take both sides here, but I'm going to pose it as the Big Ten hasn't won a national championship in 26 years, since 2000. Tom Izzo, Mateen Cleaves, Morris Peterson, that great Michigan State team. They've got 2 teams in the Final Four. They got 2 cracks at it. Would you take, if I said, hey, there's $100,000 sitting on the table, you can either take Michigan and Illinois, or you can take UConn and Arizona, but you have to pick the winner from one of those 2 groups. Who are you taking? And again, Marsh, you can't have both sides.
Can't have 4. Yeah, that's a shame. So based on my betting trends and how my bracket turned out, I would say I would pick Arizona and UConn. However, I have been historically piss poor in this tournament when it comes to picking any team. So therefore, I'm taking the Big Ten teams for an official pick for $100,000 just to see if I can trick up the old brain and see if we can win some money.
So you somehow managed to say, I think this, but I'm taking that. So you somehow
Yes.
managed to finagle
I'm
your way
going
into both
against-
sides.
I have an answer.
I'm going against what I think.
I think that Michigan Arizona game is a true toss up, and I like UConn versus Illinois, so I would take Arizona and UConn just for that fact that I like UConn. If I had to choose one team overall to win it, though, I do think I would choose Michigan.
Interesting. Oh, like you're saying with odds, or you're basically saying
Yeah.
you don't think Illinois is going to move on. So you're kind of
Yes.
okay.
I picked 4
I think-
teams. He picked 3.
No. I made my pick on the other because it's a group and you get 2 shots. I think UConn. I think that's a true toss up. Arizona, Michigan. But if I had to choose just one team to win it, I would take Michigan.
So he's playing the odds game of confidence with UConn gets him
I've
to
been
the final
doubting-
game.
I've been doubting
And
Illinois hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
They keep
The
proving me
confidence of
wrong.
UConn getting there, but then also you've got the 50-50 shot of Michigan, Arizona, which now has become, I'm not a math guy, but you're almost getting like 60% based on your confidence level here. I see where you're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting conundrum because on one side of the equation, I'm showing right now on Hard Rock that Illinois is a 1.5 point favorite over UConn, and that Michigan is a 1.5 point underdog to Arizona. So you either get a 1.5 point favorite and a 1.5 point dog on both sides
See,
of this
I'm,
equation.
I'm showing Michigan as the 1.5
Yeah.
point favorite
Correct.
against Arizona.
Yeah. Michigan minus
I'm
1.5.
sorry, I
and
am
then
too. Yeah, I
you can
misread
get
that.
Illinois.
And I'm showing 2.5 for Illinois.
So you can get
Again.
anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5 on Illinois as the favorites. So there is some movement there depending on what you like better.
So Vegas is saying clearly it's the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, it's
clearly,
one of
but-
yeah, because I mean, then the tournament winner. So I'm showing Michigan is plus 150, Arizona is plus 175, Illinois plus 450, and UConn plus 600.
And if you're feeling real spicy, you can parlay the UConn men with the UConn women in the Final Four to win it all. Now we're talking juicy odds.
I don't bet on clam ball, but no. Last question, and we'll kind of move on from the college basketball. But remove Hurley. Who do you guys think is the best of these 3 coaches in this Final Four?
I'm going to say Brad Underwood.
Because of the squirt gun fights?
Yeah, definitely. Super soakers. Yeah.
Because they get wet and wild in the locker room.
Yeah, wet t-shirt contest. It's, there's snapping towels on ass in there, so
Mm.
I think it's Dusty May. He did it at Florida Atlantic. He's doing it here at Michigan, and he might be doing it at North Carolina next. I feel like both those coaches are what in that Arizona Michigan game are hot targets for the Tar Heels. So
yes.
it'll be interesting.
I think it could be Tommy Lloyd. I think Tommy Lloyd is an incredible coach and, spent, 20 years under Mark Few. That's who I don't know why North Carolina doesn't go get Mark Few from Gonzaga.
So-
have him try to win a national championship, and you don't like that?
So living in
No.
the triangle, okay, we got NC State, UNC, Duke all within 20 minutes here. And that's all the talk of the town is Tommy Lloyd. That every UNC fan's like, Tommy's coming after the tournament, blah, blah, blah. And then
His
you
answers
had
have been
vague.
somewhat vague.
Yeah. Well, then you had the Will Wade saga. I mean, that doesn't really matter because NC State's not a part of it, but that's also fucking hilarious. And
That
we
guy's
almost
a
had
fat cunt.
I
don't like that
John
guy.
Shire blowing double-digit leads every season. I mean, we almost had an opening in every spot here in the triangle. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I think Tommy Lloyd.
Duke had to really sit there and ponder dismissing John Shire. He may go to the NBA, especially if it ends up
the
being,
Bulls.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, they're not firing him because he lost on a buzzer beater in the Elite Eight. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just give our national championship game matchup and pick, and we'll move on to some other topics. But I'm going to go Arizona versus Illinois. And Arizona cuts down the nets. They bring the championship trophy back to the desert. Tommy Lloyd may soften the blow of taking the North Carolina job by delivering a national championship and then skipping town. Arizona over Illinois is my pick. Ryan.
I'm going opposite of you. I'm going Michigan and UConn, and I'm going Michigan in a close one. I think that actually I'm going Michigan in a fairly easy 8 to 10 point win.
Okay. I'm going sticking with my guns. I've been Arizona this whole time. So I'm going to go Arizona over UConn. And I am interested to see if Arizona does win, how much money they have to throw at Tommy Lloyd to keep him there is really where it becomes a little spicy, I think.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's the sign of a good Final Four when you got three guys on here who are, for various reasons, all have different matchups in the championship. And Max and I both have Arizona. Ryan has Michigan, but three different matchups predicted. That means it should be a pretty competitive and compelling Final Four. And let's just hope we get a couple more classics here on Saturday, leading to maximum hype and anticipation Monday night for the national championship. Is the national championship still start at like
8:50? It's 8:50, so 10 till 9. It's the dumbest shit in the world. I'm telling you, man, I don't understand it. It's the Super Bowl is the only thing that can do it right. It makes no sense. And while granted, NBA and NHL, it's like they're starting games at 8 when you get to the finals, which is fine. But national championship in college, both ways, football and basketball, both start at 9 o'clock. And it is just baffling to me that we can't figure that out. Fuck the West Coast. I'm over it.
So stupid.
I am lobbying for more day games in sports. Like, we need it. I need an excuse to drink beer while the sun is still up and get my sports fix. I'm so sick and tired of fucking prime time and these late starts for everything.
Well, that's a good kind of setup and segue into, let's talk Tiger. He'll be teeing off next Thursday in Augusta.
I don't know.
No, he's definitely not. He's going to rehab.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think he's gonna be there, but
no,
I have not heard anything.
He came out today and gave an official statement that he was going to get treatment.
That's right. I did see that.
Are you a huge Tiger guy like some of the other bozos in our
I wasn't
friend group?
for a long time, but I am from a respect perspective. I love watching old Tiger do the things that he did was the most incredible shit we have ever seen. It's like building a robot and putting it on the golf course in a game that is so finesse driven, and he could just do shit with his body and with his golf swing that nobody else could do, and put so much physical tax on his body that there's a reason he's addicted to painkillers now. I mean, he had so many surgeries and shit because he was just doing everything at 130%. It felt like every time, and it
he's
showed,
a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean, he trained with him. The guy's a nut job, but I would say not as much. I love Tiger. I respect the hell out of him, and you just can't not like him in some instances, unless you're a woman or
He's a fucking twat. I don't know, what is the appeal? Yeah, he was great at golf 25 years ago. He's a fucking twat. He publicly humiliates his family, his kids, his wife. He's fucking Denny's waitresses. Like he goes and trains with the Navy SEALs. They dedicate all this time and effort and energy into like doing what he wants to do. Then they go to lunch and he stiffs them on the tab. Marco Mira is a mentor to him early in his career. He treats Marco Mira like shit later on, for no reason.
He's an asshole.
He drinks and drive and like he's a multi billionaire, I think, and he can't get a driver. He's speeding around neighborhood. Like he
doesn't
killed,
want a driver because of the privacy, is what
because he's
what
a
he
fucking.
said.
I mean,
He's
Tesla
a dumb
full
twat.
self-driving is $99 a month.
Yeah. It's insane.
He's a billionaire.
I mean, sure, I'm not going to argue what he accomplished on the golf course. He was an unbelievable golfer and one of the most dominant golfers we've ever seen early in his career. There's no denying that. But just like I hate LeBron, I respect what LeBron's done on the court, but he's a fucking twat. And
Yeah.
I don't understand what there is to like about it.
I don't disagree with that in some instances. I mean, I think it's just like his body of work that is so infatuating for people. And, he was like the face, he's like what brought Nike to golf and shit like that. And that, that gets the Doros and the Coobs of the world hard. But I would say really just his body of work is what I love about Tiger. I think he's a piece of shit at the end of the day. I mean, if you're a drug addict and like you said, the public humiliation of his family is, and the womanizing and all the other shit is just like, how many breaks are we going to give the guy? Your point, Nard, at some point you got to be like, okay, what are we doing? This guy doesn't need any more empathy. He's a scumbag, and I think that gets lost in translation a little bit just because of his body of work.
Ryan, where do you fall on Tiger?
He makes it way more interesting, and I'm not a golf guy, so when he is in it, I'm 20 times more likely to watch. I just don't really, I'm kind of indifferent because I don't really pay attention. But if he was in any major, I would be glued to my TV. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, he'll never win those big tournaments outside of Augusta, because Augusta is so suited to, if you know how to play the course the right way, you can win at any stage of your career. Like a U.S. Open is not like that. There's 6 inches of rough. He's fucking missing the cut by a mile.
Yeah, and I assume he's never going to be in another one again, so I'm not counting on watching him, on the leaderboard ever again. But I do think he's kind of at the point where you can't even argue he's not a scumbag. He just seems like he is.
Yeah.
Personal life, the way he treats people, the way he treats society. I mean, he's gonna kill someone. This is like the third time he's flipped a car. Like, I don't know anyone that's flipped a car.
It was like a 25 mile an hour zone.
Fucking 3 times. Like that's it's insane.
It's hard to do.
25 miles an hour.
It was 25 or 35. It was residential road.
It's almost impossible. I don't know if I could physically do that.
No. At this point, there's too much evidence of him being a selfish prick. And look, I agree. If he's in the Masters next week and he's involved at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday, it's a much more compelling tournament. It's an unbelievable storyline. And it's interesting. I would tune in to root against him, but I get why people, 2019 was cool, but I think he's undone now. A lot of 2019 and the goodwill that he kind of got back because it seemed like he had matured, and there's those images and those video clips of him, hugging Charlie. Charlie finally got to see him win, a tournament, and it was cool.
You don't come back from this one. Like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Like that, it's not going to happen. Like, I don't think he gets the same empathy this time. People wake up to him being a piece of shit. It's now, we've gotten, this is like what, 3rd, 4th incident. The guy's body is just completely, reconstructed. He's basically a bionic man now. It's like, let's put a bow on it. Tiger, go to rehab, do your TGL thing, which is kind of fun, I have to admit. And if he plays in that every once in a while, it's like, okay, it's intriguing. But at the same time, let the golf world move on.
Yeah, I haven't got into TGL. I like golf enough that I'll watch the tournaments on the weekends. I'm not watching guys play a simulator on, in an arena at night. So not my thing,
accurate.
but if you're a big golf guy, enjoy it. have at it. So Jaden Ivey doesn't really like gay people, huh? That was kind of wild.
He does not.
I honestly did not really see the story until you guys started talking about it, and I was like, wow.
I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
For former first round pick, top 5 pick from Purdue, was on a couple of those early. I think he was actually the same class as Zach Edey. They came in together to Purdue. He was a really good player at Purdue. I remembered him being a little bit bigger, but he's like a 6'3" guard. Pistons drafted him. He was good, not great, and then I think really kind of fell off this year. Pistons trade him to Chicago. Look, I've been brought up to speed really the last, I don't know, 48 to 72 hours on this whole story, but apparently the guy is essentially Travion Henderson in that he's always Bible thumping, he's always shoving his Christianity up your ass and in your face and preaching and everything is all glory to God and yada yada yada. So he, apparently he's been asking reporters in the locker room after games if what their stance is on fornication before marriage and just real obnoxious Christian bullshit. That like whatever. You want, if that's how you want to live your life, fine. Don't shove it in everyone's face. But then he gets on Instagram Live this week and starts going off on the Bulls and their participation in whatever LGBT night and essentially the Bulls. My read on the situation is the Bulls are like, hey, fuck this guy. You're a replacement level player. You don't add enough value on the court. We're done with you. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. Hit the road, Jack. And that's kind of where we're at today. Now, there's a big faction of the hardcore right, the MAGA group, that is, making this out to be like, a giant. And, I kind of had a back and forth with Joe Graham about it today. It's a business decision. You weren't good enough to spout off about LGBT issues and draw negative attention to the organization, and the Bulls got rid of you. Am I reading this incorrectly from either of you guys? Do you see it differently?
No, I mean, I think it's a pretty short topic, to be completely honest. I think at the end of the day, you're an employee, and especially in today's world where there's huge visibility on a company like the Bulls, and they have to do some of these things from a PR perspective. You just roll through it and move the fuck on. Like making a big deal about it is the number one way to get you on the shit list and get you fired and get you blackballed in a lot of places. Do I agree with DEI and all this other shit and my corporation? No, I think the best person for the job should get the job. But at the end of the day, do I open my mouth about it? No, because I'm not a dumbass and I need a paycheck. Like at the end of the day, dude, you're talking about one night. Go play hoops, go sit your ass on the cozy bench in your breakaways and your fucking shooting shirt and keep your mouth shut for 2 hours and then move on.
Or go privately talk to the organization, talk to the coaches and the GM and say, hey, I'm morally against this. I'm not going to play. Like, I don't want to, I don't, and do it privately. And then you just get like a DNP, don't show up for the game, whatever.
You spin it like an illness or whatever.
Right.
And, hey, he's just not here tonight,
And that's the thing that he doesn't understand. He is so replaceable. Wemby could come out and say I know he's never said anything like this, but he hates all gays, and the Spurs aren't doing anything because he is a freaking one of a kind. But when you are just a replacement level guy, you can't be doing that bullshit. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to move on.
It's all about whether PR wants to put the work in to deal with it or not. And frankly, when you're replaceable, they're like, I don't really feel like working that hard today.
Right. No, you can be an asshole if you're awesome. There's certainly a place for average players, NBA, from an NBA context, there's lots of replaceable players. There's only, 15 to 20 superstars in the league. So you have a role, but you can't be an asshole and average. And it's the Tim Tebow. It's the, like you can't draw all this attention and then not really add much value outside of replacement
No.
level production.
They should do a right wing NBA.
Yeah.
Be like
Blue, like
70% white.
Yeah, I was gonna
Blue
say.
Sky Basketball Association. Just be guys from Iowa. And it'd just be that Iowa Nebraska game. Hoiberg would be rolling
Yeah.
4 guys out there.
Yeah, right. Just have it on a loop.
Super entertaining. Yeah.
Marsh, I know we're getting down to the last couple weeks. I think the last day of the regular season for NHL is April 16th. We've got some really good wild card races and races for kind of that third. We got some really good playoff races is probably the best way to put it. Simply in the hockey, I'm going to be watching a lot of these games, the Blue Jackets, the Senators. I'd love to see the Red Wings get in. Any thoughts as we come down to the last couple of weeks? Any teams that you're particularly rooting for? I think we'll do a more thorough NHL kind of here should we like, here should we don't like once we know what the playoff brackets look like. But, just in terms of like what teams you do want to see in that first round and what matchups you'd like to see, what kind of sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as sticking out, like I look at the West wild card and it's pretty tight. You got the Mammoth at 82 points, Predators at 77, Kings, Jets, Sharks, Kraken, all within 2 points as well. But like I would love to see the Sharks get in. I think that would be a lot of fun. The year that Macklin Celebrini's had, you get all the firepower in the NHL playoffs. It makes it so much more fun. I think
Now, the
it's an
trade-off to that would
interesting.
be that Squeak Scolari gets to talk about hockey in the group chat.
That's very true. Which that's a quick mute chat in that scenario. But the West, I mean, really, the Central Division over the Pacific Division is so much different. The Avalanche are just absolute juggernauts. I think they're going to be the team to beat in the whole thing. But then when you get to the East, man, I mean, the East is a gauntlet. Everybody is right in the thick of it. You look at the Metro, the Metro's a little bit weak. Again, it's your Carolina Hurricanes at the top. They are every year. They'll find a way to choke in the playoffs. But the Atlantic is brutal. And the fact that the Sabres are legit for the first time and as long as I can possibly remember is going to make things interesting. They could easily end up with the 1 seed. And then, you got a Lightning team that you and I know is, I mean, they are top to bottom loaded. Bassey's probably going to win Vezina again. John Cooper's up for Jack Adams again. Kucherov's going to be up for the Hart again. But then some new blood, I think, is the biggest thing. So, like I mentioned, the Sabres, the Canadians are right in the thick of it. You're going to see the Penguins get back in it, possibly the Blue Jackets. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be fun.
Islanders are good.
Yeah, Anaheim Ducks. I mean, when's the last
Yeah,
time you saw?
I'm glad the Panthers are out. They obviously had some pretty tough injuries, but yeah, I mean it's an opportunity for, I don't know that I'd call the Lightning and the Hurricanes new blood. The Lightning have won 2 Stanley Cups this decade,
Right.
and we're in another one. Hurricanes are always seem to be in like the Eastern Conference Finals, or they got to the Stanley Cup against Vegas, right? And got smashed a couple years ago. The year before,
I think they actually got to the semis. I'm not sure, but I mean, the moral of the story, they get to the final 4 teams pretty consistently and never deliver. So, and nothing changes. I mean, the reality is with hockey too, experience is everything. We talked about it in basketball, kind of what that difference is between the freshman NIL and the experienced teams. When it comes to the NHL, Stanley Cup playoff experience means more than any other sport as far as playoffs are concerned. It's just a different game when the lights come on in the playoffs and you take the ice. And that's why I think the Lightning have got another good shot, dude. I really do. And I would love to see it. Avalanche are they're going to be a wagon though. They are very, very good.
yeah, I'm not necessarily just penciling the Avalanche into that Stanley Cup final. I think we've seen Edmonton be able to turn it on. We've seen the Vegas, Vegas is really struggling down the stretch here. Dallas is really good. So
Minnesota's
look,
good.
I know that I'd like to see the Red Wings get in. I know that I would like to see the Blue Jackets get left out. And I don't hate their fans. It's not because Kavlik and those guys. I guess I should be rooting for Columbus for the sake of this podcast. So Ryan has a local team to kind of get behind, like like you and I do. I don't know. The hockey playoffs are about as good as it gets in terms of pro playoffs outside of the NFL. So
April, just in general, though, is going to be awesome.
yeah,
Hockey playoffs, Masters, draft. We're getting into it. It's going to be
yeah,
sexy.
it sure is. And we got UFC. We got some good UFC coming up. We had Izzy get his ass whipped. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I didn't really watch the fight. I watched the highlights and I saw the finish. He finished on his stomach, just getting his brains beat in by that. Was it Pfeiffer? Is how you say
Yeah,
it?
Joe Pfeiffer. Yeah.
Talk to us about Izzy and where he's at, and then what this means for that Pfeiffer guy moving forward in that division. He looked like he was a pretty legit player. I don't know. You this is your area of expertise. You educate us.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Pfeiffer looked really good. It's unfortunate how Izzy's career has kind of ended. It's not over yet, but losing 5 of 6, I think, at this point, it's
Is that what he's
sad, but
at
that's,
now?
I
Wow.
believe it's 4 or 5 or 5 of 6. I think it's 5 of 6. And, 2 of those losses are to Poton, Alex Pereira. So it's not a bad loss.
Yeah, he's lost four
Yeah.
in a row and five
Yeah,
of the
five
last
of
six.
6. So it's sad, but that's at the top levels of especially of UFC. That seems to be how guys go out. It's very rare you get the Khabib or the John Jones that go out on top, and it's usually guys fall off and they have so much belief in themselves they keep taking those top fights at the end, and you lose just a little bit, and these young guys are coming up and they're hungry, and Joe Pfeiffer hits hard. And I thought Izzy had him at different times. It was an entertaining first couple of rounds. Izzy had him in some trouble, but he kind of went to war, and it was a scrap for a little bit. And Pfeiffer was able to just eventually take him down, mount him, and just beat the shit out of him. He almost had a sub opportunity, but ended up flattening him out, like you said, Casey. He was flat on his stomach, just getting rained down on at the end. And it's sad, but I think that might be the last time Izzy headlines a card. Not that he can't or doesn't have the star power anymore, but I think his time is just gone now.
I was gonna say it's crazy you say that because, like, as the casual UFC fan, you say Iggy's name, and I'm like, oh yeah, bad son of a bitch. Like, and then
He was.
you said 5 of 6. I feel like that happened quick. Like, maybe I'm wrong there, but like that feels quick in the sense of a decline.
2022, November of 22 is the first time he lost to Alex Pereira. Yeah, and before that, he had like a 10-fight win streak. The only fight he lost was when he went up to try to become the double champ and beat Jan Blachowicz at 205, and he just got wrestle fucked in that one. But yeah, it is crazy that his career has fallen off so hard.
Yeah, and it's a good point because it is rare, and even a guy like Poirier who lost 3 of his last 4, right? But his last fight in the octagon was a 5-round bagger against Max Holloway, and he went out, still very much a quality fighter that just was, matched up against two or three very difficult opponents in the last 4 fights. And was there anything else on that card Saturday that's worth noting?
It was a really good card. There was like 8 finishes, but nothing worth noting on this stage.
327 next week. Olberg against Yuri.
Yeah, that's a good card, and I think worth touching on next week for sure.
Good.
Oh, that guy Curtis Blades is fighting. I saw him fight on I think it was Dana White's Contender Series. I think he played for the Foreigners for a couple years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nothing.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, good show. Good to have Marsh back in the mix. We missed him last week. We'll be heavy Marsh next week. Ryan's going to be on a little vacation, and it is Masters week, so we will really lean into the brain trust that is Max on Masters. I think we'll have maybe a guest or two next week, but All right, guys. Well, good show. Good April 1st, April Fool's Day, Nard Dog Sports Show. We got the Final Four coming up this week. We'll be coming back to you early next week with wrap up of the college basketball season, the Final Four, the national championship game. We'll get into all the Masters preview, picks, discussion next week. And we got to start talking NFL draft here at some point. But guys, really appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. That's the Nard Dog Sports Show. Peace.
That's the show, now you know. This is how the real ones roll. Big thanks, good night, see you down the road on the Nard Dog Sports Show.